This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow. Hello and welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name is Michael Willer. I am a chubby chaser. And today I am feeling like a creativity boy. My brain returned. It was gone for a while there. But it's back and I'm enjoying it.
Brain good.
Brain good. No brain bad.
Hey there, my name's Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I am rejoicing for the return of Michael's brain. It has been missed. We've been setting up all sorts of like missing posters around town and lost.
It's sad for a long time.
Checking the pound repeatedly.
Yes. Hello, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. Yes, and I too am rejoicing for the return of Michael's brain in the coming in a donkey cart down the streets of Jerusalem here on Palm Sunday.
See the behind the scenes for more details.
I guess I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I'm also excited for the return of Michael's brain.
Well,
I saw it, standing on a street corner in a little tube top with a mixed doll and smoking a cigarette.
No kissing.
To be clear, my brain is simultaneously a lost puppy, a whore, and Jesus.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
You are a well-rounded person, Michael.
I've walked many paths. Side note,
walked many streets.
The reason I brought that up, I just wanted to kind of address this because in the past I've mentioned, mostly last year I was talking about, hey, like managing some health issues, carpal tunnel, other stuff, lethargy, brain fog. I'm feeling a lot better now. And I just wanted to make a point to say that so that people could kind of close the loop on that story. Things are looking up. I'm feeling better. Things are being treated. And it's all sunshine and rainbows. Jesus did not go to hell. That's not canon.
Yes, he did. It's coming Saturday.
Coming this Saturday.
Jesus in hell.
Thank you for that.
We're bringing some really unhinged in-person energy to this online recording of the podcast. And the reason we can do that online using this platform that we pay for is because of Patreon. The patrons on Patreon.
Thank you, Patreon.
Thank you guys
patrons.
so much.
Michael, that was smooth like butter sliding down a warm roll.
Yeah. That's my favorite kind of butter. Also thank you to Bigger City, our longtime sponsor, and also to our affiliates, Bearskin and Big Fig.
Yes.
And you can find them very easily on our partners page on our website. Bearskin is still running their affiliate promo with us. If you type in the code Big Fat Gay Pod, all one word, you can get 15% off any of your purchases. Get some underwear. Underwear is great. Yeah. Everybody needs underwear.
It's good and good for you.
Yeah.
Think of us. Anytime you put on underwear, you can be like, you can put on your underwear, start your day and say, I just helped the Big Fat Gay Podcast.
That's right.
And you'll be amazed how supportive the Big Fat Gay Podcast can be.
Of your balls.
Michael, take us
and also the underwear.
We're trapped in a loop, Michael. We're trapped in a loop. Get us out of here.
Where's the stink? The pop culture stink. Go. There we go. Back.
I feel like that just took us back on the track. And we're animatronics. And we're dancing.
Because we're on the monorail.
Dip our top hats with a flourish. Straight into this first story, which I have a lot of feelings about.
Yes.
USA Today. Let's get serious. Eli Lilly slams Hollywood's Ozempic obsession ahead of the Oscars.
Yeah, there's lots to say here.
So first up, set up what Eli Lilly is for people, because it sounds like somebody's name, and it's it probably is. Dan, who is Eli Lilly?
Who is Eli Lilly, and where did they get that funny name? So Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company, and probably the most well known for the weight loss drugs Ozempic and Wegovy, and they have competitors and there are other drugs. Anyway, the point is that they and the rest of the pharmaceutical companies that make these drugs are working fast and furious serious to get them out to fat people to not be fat anymore. And there is a sense, and this always happens with any new weight loss technology, there is a sense that like, oh, it's just a vanity thing. And the problem is that if you're a pharmaceutical company, you don't want your drug associated with vanity. You're trying to say, no, this is a serious medical health issue. And so what the ad does is it talks about how this is a real drug for real people with a real disease, which is they're calling obesity. And it's not meant for, and they have this one particular ad that goes after, the Hollywood elite, and they're just trying to get into a ball gown, whereas real people need it. This, Sheila on the bus who's fat really needs it.
So first of all, this commercial, I appreciate the sentiment because it's like, yes, but also I have, it's very well done. It's very like, I don't know, like scary drug.
So here, just so people are kind of up to speed, here's some audio from the first commercial, which addresses the Hollywood elite. There is another one, which we'll get to later as well.
Some people have been using medicine never meant for them. For the smaller dress or tux. For a big night. For vanity. But that's not the point. People whose health is affected by obesity are the reason we work on these medications. It matters who gets them.
It's such spooky music, and it's like it's ominous. I like it, except that the payoff, I guess, it's like it's not. There's this. It's not for the elite. It's for the fat woman riding the bus, which it's like, I mean, yes, but also it's like I don't know how I like. I don't know how I feel about it. The like, it's not glitz. It's this random fat woman we filmed on the bus who doesn't know she's part of this commercial.
No, it's staged. It's obviously staged. No, I guess what I am responding to is just, again, historically, this always happens because every time there is a successful treatment for something stigmatized, like being fat or drug addiction or anything like that, there is this sense, and this happens all across media. It's like, oh, it worked too well and too fast and too easy. It's a cheat. So, for example, getting off heroin with just this one little drug, that's a cheat. They have to suffer. And losing weight by getting gastric bypass, no, they didn't do it the real way. And being able to take injections to lower your BMI, that's a cheat. And there's this whole thing where if you didn't suffer for the stigma enough, if you got out of the stigma without sufficient suffering, there's something really snarky wrong.
It ties
and so the ad combats that, which I think is good.
The other element to this is, so they're saying, this isn't for, the vain Hollywood elite who are, standard sized people taking it to get even skinnier, which is okay, good. But also the price of these drugs is prohibitively expensive for the vast majority of people, which kind of makes it seem like it's really just for the rich elite that can afford it.
Well, but that's a temporary situation. The price is because they are working down eventually.
They are working so hard to get insurance companies to pay for this.
Yeah,
everywhere, always. In fact,
functionally, that still means for the consumer, the price will go down.
Yeah. And no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that, believe me, the people who wanted to have more access more than anyone is Eli Lilly. I mean, they want everybody on this show.
They don't have control of the price?
No, they don't want to lower the price. They want it more accessible. Those are two different things.
They want everybody to be taking it at the price it's at now.
Yeah. And the way to do that is to have insurance companies, and they just won a victory. I think Medicaid, now is paying for it in some situations.
Well,
so anyway.
So let's talk about that a second, because the pairing of these two ads is so insidious and like, damn.
So what's the second ad? We need to tell them what the second ad is too.
So the second ad it is not about Hollywood. It is about the difficulty of being a fat person. And it is black and white. Let's kind of drop some here.
Shame. It showed up when I was young and stayed like a shadow, living in glances of people I loved and ones I didn't even know, always reminding me of my body's supposed value. But what good is shame when it comes to health? Health is not about what weight we lose. It's about all the things a body can gain.
Tigers Osborne was interviewed to respond to this as well, and mentions that, this ad could have been something released by NAFA, given the message that, shame is something that's instilled upon us as fat people, and that you have to grapple with over the years. But then at the end, it ends with Eli Lilly, like, we are a pharmaceutical company, a medical company, something like that. Like, it doesn't say the name of the drug anywhere. But it's literally just an ad for them to try and make their optics more,
Well, again, I think it's about access. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people on the drug and to ask for the drug. And they're trying to take away the idea that you're doing it for a vanity purpose. Like, let's say, you're 250 pounds and you could lose that on your own. And no, I want the drug. Well, of course they want to sell you the drug. And what they're trying to get rid of is the stigma that Hollywood and a lot of late night talk show hosts have done of oh, it's the cheat way out. And they're trying to say, no, you shouldn't be ashamed. You should treat this as a medical condition. And guess what? We sell medicines for medical conditions. So they're trying to make that argument again. And I'm kind of torn as well. I love the idea that you shouldn't be ashamed of this. The fact that they're tying it to a weight loss drug to eradicate not the shame, but the condition.
Well, and what gets me is
they're still riding the shame to their destination.
Yes. And they're trying to, they're using shame, but they're also not trying to get people to take responsibility of their own judgments and bias and prejudice towards fat people. And it's making it seem like they kind of are, but they're not. And it's just so...
It pushes the 90s high school teen boy movie thing of if you just change, the world will love you, right? It's
if you take off your glasses and let
but
down
if you take
your
off
hair.
your glasses and let down your hair, then all of a sudden the problem is you. It really is you.
There was a person inside that fat all along.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to get the disconnect for them. They actually do see this as a medical condition that is also accompanied by a stigma, in the same way that, if you think back, there used to be a thing, and maybe still today, about HIV or AIDS being a stigma and also a medical condition. And they're trying to say, no, people wouldn't go to their doctor to report it because then they'd be stigmatized. Yeah. And so that's how Eli Lilly and a lot of the doctors in the medical industry is looking at this, is we're trying to get rid of the stigma and treat the disease. The problem is, as Regan Chastain points out, she says, you can't be against fat and not also be against fat people. That they're not, because it's this thing. It's fat people are not inherently diseased. Fat is a perception, not a diagnosis.
Right.
I mean, it's just so they're perfect ads, and that's what I think makes me so angry. Except the first one. I feel like the first one, it's I have notes. I don't know. There were fat people at the Oscars. I don't
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. Are you the fat woman riding the bus? Probably.
Yeah.
I know I am, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, but I do agree with this. I do agree that, look, if you want to get on the drugs, fine, whatever. That's a personal choice. I'm not getting near that. Therefore I do agree with the point of view that, look, if somebody wants to seek these out and they're experiencing a medical benefit from it, that's great. And it shouldn't be trivialized by late night talk show hosts as a cheat because they're not suffering sufficiently.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're going to pivot. We're pivoting. We're thriving. We're celebrating.
We're
companies doing good.
Spinning our way out of that topic.
Yeah.
Into Pinterest. We have an article from TechCrunch.
Yes.
Pinterest rolls out its body type ranges tool to the US. So if you're not familiar, Pinterest is essentially a massive image search / idea board platform. So
it's your idea board and everybody else's idea board linked together, so you can search all the idea boards in the world.
Your sister-in-law can tell you all about Pinterest. If you have been struggling to find something to connect about, if he's have you heard of Pinterest? And just see the joy slowly spread across her face. And this isn't the first time we've talked about Pinterest. Last year, because they rolled out a new feature where they were showing diverse body types when you searched fashion things. So instead of just seeing the kind of like thin white woman version of fairy tale wedding dresses, you now get diverse body types, and they're building on that by creating body type range tools. So you can select, like, there's options to like, what is your body type like?
They have 4 options for body type. Currently this only applies to women's fashion and wedding ideas, but they do have plans to broaden this to men's fashion, and presumably to just keep going with varieties of fashion. It's kind of incredible.
I love this, and I haven't seen the actual site on Pinterest. Maybe one of you has, so you can check me on this. But what I kind of love is, like Michael just said, we have 4 types, and normally they would have to be named, right? Like you'd have, if I said we have 4 kinds of avocado, you would ask, well, what are the kinds? Right? That you would name the types of avocado. Well, okay, but it gets very dicey to name body types. And I love that they've completely avoided this by just having icons. It's just click on this image if you want this body type, and you can call it whatever you want. And I kind of love that, because it's such a visual medium that you kind of dispense with the label and get right to what you're looking for.
Although I would like the simplicity of learning a name for it so that I could do a search for that thing.
No, but like, you can. You just click on that button that has that image, and it's only on Pinterest, so you can't do a global search for it anyway.
But exactly. But I'm saying, like, if I want to search for clothes for my body type, right? If there was a name for my body type, that would be useful for me. You know?
Yes, well, and that's why I like labels. They're useful. Yeah. The problem, but I think this skirts a big nomenclature issue. It skirts a big blowback issue. Can you imagine? They could have named it anything. They could have named it blue, and people would be like, I can't believe they called it blue. You know, like, what's blue code for?
True. That's true. The labels for it, like, I guess my body type, I've been described as a pear in the past. I've been described as an apple at times. Like,
who cares?
I don't love the fruit. I don't love the fruit analogies. I don't want to be called a banana either,
because fat people love fruit.
No, it's
I mean, to be fair, I do love fruit. Fruit is delicious.
Because we're sweet.
I will say, I don't see, like, I'm just on Pinterest right now, and I typed in wedding dresses. I don't see this option. They say all you have to do is type your search in, and then in the filters, you can select body types.
Of course not, Michael. You're a man.
Oh, maybe. I mean, do you ever put that on my profile? Have I?
No, it shouldn't code with your gender identity on the site. No, but they are going to roll this out for men's fashion a little bit later, which is very encouraging, because, like, I mean, obviously they're starting with their biggest money makers, which are wedding dresses, and things like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Your sister-in-law, they're starting with her. Okay, let's fly that eagle in.
Do you feel it? The cool breeze, orange groves, some pine scent as we go over the mountains.
It's Disneyland. It's like it's related, goofy. So the article we have today is really wonderful. It's Nevada Public Radio reporting on Big Gal Backpackers, an organization they hike.
So I think it's actually, because this was confusing, I think it's Boise Public Radio, which is part of NPR, but Nevada Public Radio did a article about the story, and it's also NPR. I just wanted to have some text.
The group is in Boise.
Boise, right? Yeah. Anyway, they've created a fat-friendly space for people to go hiking together.
It's called Big Gal Backpackers Boise.
Yes, and I think Kirsten Strow. Kirsten Strow is the founder of this group. She said she'd seen other groups like this in other places and didn't have one locally. And so, like all admirable go-getters and people, she just said, I'm going to do it myself, and I'll make this group myself.
It's either fly to Georgia or start it herself.
And I love that she's family too. She and her lesbian partner, her wife, founded this group together.
I didn't know that.
You know, and one of the things that I really like about this is like, this is one of the most sort of like doable things for ourselves that we can do wherever you live, right?
Yeah.
If you're listening to us, you have access to the internet. You have the ability to put together your own walking group of people who are going to be fun to walk with you, right?
Mm-hmm. And if you have any reservations about this, just know in Boise, Idaho, they started this group in 2020 and they have 450 members now.
Yeah.
Of this hiking group. They do other activities as well, I think, but it started with hiking specifically.
Yeah.
Well, probably during pandemic, right? Just to get out of the house and enjoy the outdoors.
I would think so. That's fall of 2020. People are like starting to feel like they can probably socialize outside, you know.
And one of the things that I like about this group is she set up her own parameters when she did this. Where like, this is not a weight loss group, right?
Yeah.
This is a group for fun, you know, and it's very clear in the group that like the only thing necessary to hike is to have a hiker. Like that is it. And so, you know, it's a low point of entry. It's not only good for you physically, but, you know, hiking with people, it's a great way to connect with new folks.
Yeah. And with their dogs, apparently, because everybody introduces themselves and their dogs.
So even if you don't like people or hiking with people, maybe you like hiking with dogs. You never know.
Dogs and their people.
And I like that the group, you know, the target audience is big gals, but men and gender non-conforming people can also join. And, you know, I like that because I do think guys, I always kind of took as a gender neutral, and I like doing the same for gals now. Be like,
as a term, as a word, guys,
as a collective.
Yeah, I see.
Like whether it's people of all genders or just like a pack of dogs, and be like, come on, gals.
My favorite quote in this article, shared by a member, Beth Bradley. Farther down, she's telling her story, and she says, the mountain or the trail, they're neutral to me. They don't care how big I am or not. I fit out there, which I think is a really, you know, I'm not the world's biggest hiker, but I have been on hikes and I pretty much enjoy it every time because of that exact thing, which is that nature is so massive that there's nowhere within like a hiking trail, like a public trail that you can just go on. There's nowhere you can't fit. There's no like, you know, assuming that you have the ability to like go out and walk and kind of like rough it a little bit, like you're not going to find yourself in a space that's too small for you. And I think there's something kind of liberating in that feeling, especially when you're in a group of other people just like you.
Oh, very much so. One of the things that's always interesting about these things is that when you join a hiking group like this, you might have certain expectations on what that group will be like when you show up. And that can give you a lot of anxiety, right? And then when you show up, you might discover, wow, this is nothing at all like I was expecting. And I have been sweating like crazy for the past week since I signed up for this, anticipating a thing of horror when it wasn't like that.
Well, Don, that's assuming that you get the address of the place you're actually invited to go.
That's true. We're not talking about hiking anymore, are we, Trevor?
No,
Trevor has a story about this.
Don is very elegantly segueing into our main topic, which starts with the story of...
Yes. So this is if you're not terminally online like I am, you have not heard of this. And I don't want to get like, there's a lot of drama around it. I am not trying to feud with any other podcasts or something, especially podcasts with much larger listenerships than us and people who could, beat my ass by reading me or just like kicking me on the floor. But there was a video that went viral of a podcast host talking about how they screen their hookups. And what they do is they tell them the wrong address. They give them the address of across the street where they live from. So they can see from their window the person going across the street and decide if they want to correct them and invite them up to the apartment or just kind of then ghost them. The other podcast host and guest immediately were like, that's not cool. This person has subsequently released an apology video, and that podcast has a new episode that will have come out yesterday talking about this and unpacking the problematic nature of giving someone a different address because you don't want to meet them without screening them.
I think we call that. Yes, yeah. And in the old days before the internet, we used to call that lying.
I was gonna say that.
And also just like how dangerous that is for queer people, especially like if someone is queer and a person of color or non-gender conforming, or just like there's so much wrong with it.
Yeah,
other than it just being an asshole move.
But that's not the purpose of why we're bringing it up. Because yes, it's terrible, and everybody knows it's terrible. Even the people who are doing it think now it's terrible. But that's not our story. What's our story, Trevor?
The story is, so having expectations when you're arranging a hookup or meetup or something, and how do you manage your expectations of what's happening online versus what happens in person, be it physically or personality wise, or just like how the back and forth goes, because very frequently,
because sometimes people when they're texting or when they're writing messages back and forth, that is not how you experience them in person, and for better or for worse. Sometimes people are much better online.
I would even say it's impossible to experience somebody online the same as you would experience them in person.
Yeah,
like you just can't replicate those two
I can't
things.
even imagine making a case that you could.
No, but there's a question. But sometimes they're so different that one enjoys one and not the other.
Yeah.
That's
this
true.
This can lead to a lot of, I guess, shifts in perception. Somebody and also I think so. Part of this for me is like, okay, you're talking to somebody online, and most of the people that I've dated, I met online first. So this is very relatable to me. But I think people have a propensity to kind of make someone they're excited about into what they want them to be in your head, like to imagine and project. And
you're going to interpret whatever they send in the way you most want to. Right?
And the danger is that
for better or for worse.
For better or for worse.
You're not, almost nobody, I would say maybe even just nobody shows up online and says like, here's the actual version of me versus the sort of the ideal version of me that I'm going to put my best foot forward, which of course you're going to put your best foot forward, but that also means that all of the other things kind of balancing out your personality are hidden. And so it makes that much easier to kind of project this idealized image onto somebody that you're excited about, so that when you meet in person, if they are not exactly like that, even if it's just slightly not like that, you are going to have a reaction.
But that's something you really need to focus on yourself too. Like you need to know if you're the kind of person that does that.
Everybody does that.
I've experienced
it's a bigger problem for some people than others.
Yeah, but I've experienced it the opposite way. I've experienced it where I was chatting with a guy and like he is just so in your face sexual. But I know he's not stupid because of other things I know about him. But he's like, I'm not enjoying the chat.
Mm-hmm.
But we live close enough that I can just meet him, right? Mm-hmm. So I have actually taken a chance on characters like that. And guess what? They're completely wonderful in person. They just have a really terrible online dick forward persona.
So I think I have talked about this on the podcast before, of kind of being on the receiving end of I didn't look like someone expected, and they were like, oh, like you look different than your pictures. And I was like, oh, I hope that's a good thing. And I laughed. And he just kind of like, it was just like deadpan. Like he didn't react.
Oh my God.
And he's like, oh,
Jesus.
like your hair's different in your pictures. I'm like,
Jesus.
because it was during one of those points where it was like weirdly humid in LA. So like my hair had kind of like gotten poofed and curly. And I'm like, oh yeah, like my hair kind of gets wavy and curly.
What a shitty thing to say to somebody. Like, seriously, like start nitpicking their hair. Like
it was a horrible date, and then subsequent hookup, and thankfully, I think it was just like I don't know. He like I think he was newer to the community and just like had a very clear expectation that I did not meet, and thankfully, it just ended abruptly, and I was
relieved,
free then.
I think that could have been.
Did you want to have sex with him at that point, or were you just? Was it one of those things where like I'll do you so I can leave?
I was so worried about because I was like so like, oh my God, like this is like what am I doing wrong? So I was just trying to salvage it. And I'm like, maybe it'll be good if I just keep going along, and it was not.
And it was Don. Well, I think that's what Don mentioned before, where it's, the guy had something in his head based on something he saw in a photo. And guess what? His head was wrong.
I've had that experience too. I think the guy that I always hate talking about hookups on the show because I always feel like it makes it sound like I'm always hooking up, but I'm not that. I almost never do that sort of thing, but
not for free. Goddamn it,
not for free. But I showed up with this guy. We had talked online, but we'd never met in person. And then when we met in person at his place, he let me in. He was very nice, and he looked at me. He's like, you're actually much smaller than you looked in the picture I saw. I'm not really that attracted to you. I hope you're not offended. Can I offer you something to drink? Would you like to talk for a few minutes?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so he offered me some water. We talked for 5 or 10 minutes. Because we had communicated online.
Yeah.
I had enjoyed the conversation. He did too, but physically we weren't going to be going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I think he did it right.
Nice.
Because
I was hoping so.
I felt respected afterwards.
Good.
I didn't feel thrown away. And honestly, being a fat man and not being attracted to my own body, right? In that way, it was an interesting experience to be told, like, I'm sorry, you look too much like what you find attractive for me to find attractive. Right?
Okay.
So that's sort of the context that I ended up getting out of it.
I mean, if it worked for you, I love the context.
Yeah. I mean, it put me on a line of thought.
Yeah.
That made me understand myself a little bit more and understand sort of attraction a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that,
Yeah. And that's
I hope that was a good experience for him too.
Yeah. Well, I think he did it in a very nice way. Like he didn't kick you to the curb. He didn't shut the door. But I've also said that. I've said to, people who've lost weight and have decried like, oh, I'm not nearly as, guys are disappointed or guys, and I'm like, yeah, but there's a whole other group of people who are now more into you, Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. So I personally feel like being in Los Angeles, and just because the whole thing for people who aren't familiar with Los Angeles is huge. It is difficult to get around. And I feel like there is a bit of raised stakes in making someone traverse somewhere. And, it's not even just LA. If you live, I don't know, if you live in Boise and you're part of the Boise Big Gals hiking group, having someone maybe fly across the country to come see you. And then if it's
because they
horrible,
are very similar. Making that trip in LA across the city versus flying across the country, same thing.
Yeah, but
I'm not even being facetious. It really is.
But I want to put this in. No matter where you live, you think it's a big deal to travel to some other, even if it's next door. I've heard people in New York City complain, I had to come all the way in from Brooklyn to meet this guy. Oh, come on, 5 stops, 5 fucking stops. You came 5 stops.
No. As a former New Yorker, no. If I came from another borough to see you, you better fucking be Brad Pitt.
Yeah. And that's my point. Everybody thinks their idea of a long way is a long way, when it's it's fractions of miles.
But also there is then the factor of if you are a super chub traveling to do anywhere to do anything, it is a whole thing. So it's there's a lot of pressure in just making sure, it's worth it, I guess.
I kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit. I want to get into what are the things that we do that may not represent ourselves in person exactly the same versus online. So I know for me, I brought this up on our call. A lot of times online, I think I may come across as a little bit more witty and maybe up to date on pop culture. If I have a little bit of time to think about a written response, even if it's just 30 seconds to a minute, when you're, sending messages back and forth, you're not necessarily, it's not a live chat all the time. So you get a little time to think of a response and to put together something a little more clever than what I think I do in person.
I feel like that's a pretty standard feeling for most people.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering, like, what does that do in terms of expectations, if anything? Like,
Well, it's interesting because I know, like, with what Dan said about that guy that was sort of like hypersexual over the texts,
Mm-hmm.
and then you showed up and he was a perfectly lovely person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hypersexual in my texts, but I'm a little bit more, I guess, open on the text or ready to go there, right? When I'm in person, I want to be a little bit more genteel, like sophisticated. I'm not that guy that's going to show up at your door and then talk about like the mechanics of anal.
Right. And I know this happens all the time from experience that talking about sex or anything sensitive, anything taboo, anything that requires so much more effort online because of the written format that you have to, and you don't know how there's no tone of voice. So anytime there's anything like sensitive or dicey to discuss, like think about this. No, you would almost never hear this in person, but you almost always hear it online. What are you into?
yeah.
The only time I remember hearing what are you into in person is in the days before the internet where you're picking up guys at a bar and, before you get too far, you're enjoying the drink. So what are you into? And like, what are we going to do when we go back to my apartment? And, but usually if we haven't talked about that online, and if we do, like I said, it requires a lot of verbiage. But if you had that conversation in person, I think it's a lot easier to have because there's so many more social cues. There's so many more. There's tone of voice. There's gesture. There's a lot of things that add to that conversation. And so I think a lot of sexual conversations online become either way too aggressive for one of the parties, or way too subtle for one of the parties, or too presumptive on one of the parties. It's just like you get a lot of mismatch when you're having that conversation online.
It's sort of like driving. Anyone that's slower than you is a road hog. Anyone that's faster than you is a speed demon.
Yes.
Right? Like it's, if you're not driving at my exact same speed, there's something wrong with you.
Oh, but it's even better than that, Don. It's even better than that because it's not like you always drive at one speed. So it's not like it's not even like a personal standard. It is a personal standard for 6:25 on a Tuesday.
Yep. I've actually caught myself doing that on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
I'm aware of it.
Oh, I'm not in the mood.
Yeah.
Oh, and this happens a lot. Like a lot of the no-shows you get, like people get ghosted. Like you set up a date and then all of a sudden they just cricket. You can't get them to respond for a confirmation. And, and I have to explain to guys, and I don't do that, but I think what happens is when they set up the date, they were horny and now they're not.
I tend to think of that as a bigger thing for chasers to do than fat guys, but it's just because I hear about it from fat guys more often.
I have done that before where it's like, I made plans and then the day comes, I'm like, oh fuck, I have to like, I made this date.
And I think everybody goes through that. Like you are never in exactly the same mood. It is rare that you are even hornier when the day comes around, unless you're really excited to meet the guy. That's possible. But usually you're not in the same frame of mind. And what I've told Trevor is like, look, there's something about the guy you like, go through with the commitment. And usually that turns out okay. Like if you just get beyond your mood and live your commitment, it's going to go all right.
So I figured this out long after it was actually relevant for me to understand it. But when I was more active on Bigger City, like 2011, 2012, 2014, like those years, I came to understand, again, well after the point that this was relevant, that I wasn't actually looking for hookups or even friends with benefits. I was just looking for friends. And I didn't really understand that about myself. And it got myself into some hot water with some people where it was like, and I was upfront that, to a degree, like not looking for a relationship, like that was always something I would make clear with people. But beyond that, it wasn't necessarily as clear as it could have been.
But can I interject here, Michael? Looking how you look, you can't just say I'm looking for friends, because anybody responding to your pics is going to be like, oh yeah, I want to be your friend.
Well, I mean, I didn't mean it that way, but that is kind of what I meant, where like, if you have to be so clear like in the profile, in everything, that is it. And then I still think people aren't necessarily going to believe you.
Because
but the problem is you're looking for, but also you're looking for, like, this is what I have on my profile now is like, you're looking for community. You're looking for the place that you belong, but the place that you belong is inherently like defined by a sexual dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're trying to integrate into a community that you haven't had before and you belong in. And yet there's this added layer of navigating like, okay, well, this person wants something that I'm not into, but I do want to like get to know them and like hang out with them.
Exactly. But I think what's going on there is it's the context of bigger city, because the point for most people, a bigger city is to find sex and or relationship.
Well, I guess.
And so I'm just saying that it's sort of, that's what I mean by the context. If you would go out on the street corner and say, I'm looking for gay friends or I'm looking for fat friends, then
I want chub chaser friends. That's like, that's the difference. So like, where do you go find chub chaser friends if not in
bigger
space?
City? Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think even if it was like, outside of the context of bigger city, I think for, like a chub who you meet who is like really into like 30 Rock and D&D and movies, it's soon like I think just you meet
Trevor,
them.
you just described yourself.
And, no, but it's like you meet them and you like he finds out you're a chaser. I think like, cause it's like you are already hot. And then you find out like, and he likes guys like me. I think it just makes it an inherently difficult thing. I mean, that's why there's like all those,
raises the stakes.
The 2000s.
That's a conversation that the straights have been having for literally
and that's like every romantic comedy where it's like men and women can't be friends.
Yeah.
But I think like right now, I feel like we're seeing a generation where men and women are friends, like the Gen Z and the Gen X's. Like I see plenty of male-female friendships now between very attractive people too.
Yes. But I also think that's coincident with the decline of romance and sexuality. I think there is this huge push. What is it called? The Nomance that the Gen Alpha, or I don't know who it is, but they're like, they kind of resent having people have sex in their movies.
I kind of get that. I will tell you,
romantic comedy with sex in it, disgusting.
There have been a couple romantic comedies that I quite liked. Very, very few. I have yet to experience a sex scene in any movie ever where I felt like it added to the movie. But that's clearly just me, maybe not just me.
That's because there's no fat men hooking up with other guys in a movie.
I think honestly, even if it were, I don't know. Like
we're kind of veering off here.
Yeah, we've wandered off the reservation. Anyway, so we've kind of wandered around and talked about a lot of different things. Clearly, we've resolved this problem. Congratulations, us!
Yay!
Good job, good work. We can give ourselves.
I want to hear from listeners about this, because I feel like people probably do. If you have frustrations about this whole online versus IRL, if you have tips about how you manage it, I don't know, tips for managing your hair in the humidity so you don't disappoint
so you don't show up wrong.
Hairspray. This is the only way. Hairspray. Now that we've solved that problem, John, do we have a bit today?
We do. So since we were talking about expectations, I thought we'd do a little experiment.
Okay.
It's a new idea I had. So I am going to read a couple details about a person's life for each of you. And then we're going to decide, based on these few facts that you've heard, would you be willing to get together with them for a coffee date?
Coffee date.
Like a romantic style.
Is it romantic or not romantic?
No, it's exploratory. Maybe you'll be friends. Maybe you'll be romantic. Some of these are fat people. Some of these are not. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So,
I'm
going to throw one at each of you. Then we get to discuss as a group whether or not we think you should see this person. And then afterwards, I will tell you who this person was.
Okay.
So Dan.
Uh-oh.
Your menu item for today, this gentleman was bullied as a child. He graduated magna cum laude from Rollins College with a degree in music. Rigorously maintained a daily routine, always starting off his day with prayer, studying, and writing. Obsessively weighed himself daily, always trying to maintain his preferred weight of 143 pounds. So these are the only details I'm giving you guys about this person. Tell me some assumptions you'd make about him. Tell me if he's somebody you'd be interested in meeting.
I would be looking for is this on the person's personal ad? Am I meeting on Bigger City? Are we meeting?
This is a bio. This is just a bio. This is information I'm telling you about this person. I want you to have coffee with.
If that's the only context I have, and you're saying it in the past tense, like all these details, which makes me think there's something changed. But given that, I don't see a hook. Like, okay, I'm not offended. I'm not put off by any of those things. I just don't get the hook.
But you don't find him interesting.
I mean, I find him interesting, but I find everybody interesting. I don't need to have coffee with this person.
Do you guys have any thoughts or questions? Do you think maybe Dan should give him a try?
No, I mean, I don't know. Just found the
Okay. So all of these are biographical facts of Fred Rogers.
Oh,
Mr. Rogers. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Rogers.
So, again, so it's like, these are things like, these are not things you assume about Fred Rogers when you know the
right.
man,
but it's also a particular slice of Fred Rogers that, like, those aren't the interesting things to me. Like, there's a lot of interesting things about Fred Rogers, and those aren't they.
So if that's, I guess Don's point is like, if that's all you've put on your profile, then you might be missing out on people learning.
Mr. Rogers could get a lot more super chubs if he had a better profile.
God damn. Yeah.
All right, Trevor. This gentleman I would like you to have coffee with married his high school sweetheart in 2007, although they are no longer together. He was a fan of wrestling growing up and made cardboard championship belts for himself and his brothers.
Red flag.
He was bullied as a child and a teen. He's a self-taught pianist. And he was homeless for a time, living in the back of his Lincoln Continental, although today he is very successful.
Does this sound like...
Is this Chris Pratt?
That's my first thought, too. That was my first thought.
No, I thought he lived in his van. But that may not be true.
I can confirm that Chris Pratt did live in his van.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you'd assume about this person based on these pieces of information?
If I'm not trying to guess the celebrity, if this was just like a profile in Big City, it's like, I am going to guess that this guy has like a wrestling thing, like a wrestling kink, and he's going to like want me to wrestle him, or in the very least, he wants me to sit on him. Which at this point in my life, I am just like more worried about than just like, I'm not really into sitting on someone. And at this point, it is just a concern of hurting them.
It's more, yeah.
But he seems like he would be quirky and maybe like a little intense at times, but like I would get coffee with him.
Okay. Do Dan, Michael, either of you have any observations or thoughts about this person?
The whole wrestling thing, I haven't met a whole lot of people that were super into like pro wrestling that I had a lot in common with. So I'm not feeling
so
it.
Trevor, you will be having coffee with John Cena.
Oh, sweet.
Okay.
And then
he was very poor. His first job in LA was earning $6 an hour selling things at a Gold's Gym. So okay.
John Cena seems like the type that would really just want you to just sit on his face.
Michael, have I got somebody that you should have coffee with?
All right, let's hear it.
The person I want you to have coffee with is the brother, son, grandson, great-grandson, and great-great-grandson of Lutheran ministers. He also is a...
I just imagine it's like immediately no.
He also is a huge fan of professional wrestling.
Yeah. You're just listing things that would completely turn me off.
He started doing stand-up at age 16 and actually just recently started rapping in 2022 under the name Signet Ringer.
I mean, no, for
no?
For a lot of reasons.
Okay. No assumptions, Dan or Trevor? Any thoughts on this guy?
He's short. That's what I'm getting from this. Is that he's
short?
He is like 5'3".
Do you have a guess as to who I'm trying to set you up with?
Is it Kevin Hart?
Not really.
Okay, it is not Kevin Hart. You are passing up on your coffee date with Paul Walter Hauser.
Yeah, he's super Christian. And as soon as I learned that, it was kind of, look, it's not a judgment per se. I'm friends with Christians, but also it just gets like, I don't know. I get hung up on that a little bit. So I don't know. Right. I was happier about him when I didn't know that.
Okay, guys, someone's trying to hook me up with this guy. Tell me if I should have coffee with him. All right.
All right.
He read sci-fi novels obsessively, claiming to have read 10 hours a day on average growing up.
Jesus
He
Christ.
studied karate, taekwondo, judo, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He started his first business at age 24. He's an enthusiastic gamer whose favorite games include Deus Ex, Fallout, and BioShock.
Now, how come you get the cool guy? Like, you set all of us up with pro wrestler fans.
And all of these are, again, there's current information for this guy. But so, yeah, you should totally date this guy.
Trevor looks on the
I mean,
fence.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out who it is.
All right. Well, I'm kind of horrified that you guys have just hooked me up with Elon Musk, but
yeah, there you go.
Oh God, that would be a horrible date.
Yeah, that wouldn't go well.
I actually I went on a date with like a horrible like executive rich guy when I was in college, and it was just like the worst. And it was just so bad, man. It was.
But the point of all of these is to show that like the information you pick to put about yourself on your personal profile says a lot, right? It's not just what you put, it's what you choose to put, what it says about you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, dear listener, who would you want to, which of these four gentlemen would you want to go on a date with? Trevor, where could they
Zero.
Well, we're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on your preferred podcast platform. Leave us a review. We always love that. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com, baby. We did it. Maybe you're waiting for a date. They had a very interesting profile. They didn't have any pics. And you actually gave them your proper address because that is the right thing to do. And maybe you see someone shuffling up. They're shuffling and they're really tall. It's like, it's not a human being. They couldn't be that tall and they're in a trench coat. And it's you open the door and you look up and then it's us. We're in a trench coat. Surprise, you're going on a date with all of us. So
Jack Donald,
watch out.
Everybody together.
Watch out. Come on, Dan, say watch out.
Watch out.
Watch out.
Watch out.